Live from the BoD studio, it is Playin and Slayin, episode number 91. 1991 was a good year, I think. I don't really remember much. I think I was in third grade. But we've been doing a jersey number thing, and I don't have a Dallas Cowboy for Ben, but I do have a Green Bay Packer, and that is longtime Green Bay Packer, Brian Noble, number 91. So,
Yeah.
Ben, hope you enjoy that. But now Troy and I are going to get into the show. And episode 91, you'll notice there are two of us, the Troy and Ty show. Little break for Bryce continues, and Josh could not join us tonight, but we will press on without them because the show must go on.
Yeah, we did put
So
an
Troy,
ad out for an intern earlier today. I believe that I saw something about we realized how much work wasn't getting done around the studio because we haven't had an intern for a while. So
studio hasn't been cleaned up. The show ideas board is running low. The website hasn't been updated in a while.
Yep.
Social media has been cold and dark. So yeah, if you know anyone interested in unpaid, uncredited, unnamed internship, let them contact info@basementofdeath.com, which won't get answered because the intern no longer checks our email. So episode 91 is where we hire a new intern. But actually, no, Troy, we're going to talk about the usual, playing, hobbying, kind of what we've been up to. And then talk a little bit about, we are here on the cusp of summer. So in Wisconsin, it gets a little difficult to find the time to game because of youth sports and, the 42 days of sunshine and warmth that we get. So you're a little less likely to be cooped up inside. But it is important still to have some hobby goals and gaming kind of aspirations. Aspirational gaming, I like that. I think I'm gonna stick with that for the coming summer months. Obviously, a few conventions that help you get some games played and spend some time socializing, but just a few hobby goals and things that we want to get done. So, Troy, when you're playing and slaying, it is important to stay hydrated. So I'm going to kick it over to you because I hear you've been a bit of a mixologist today.
Yep. So you won't. So I have. I pulled out Sun King Brewery glass because Gen Con season coming soon. And what I took, and I've talked about the Central Distillery cherry vodka, and then our friends at Liquid Death, they've been doing like their sodas now, and I'm like, ooh, severed lime and cherry vodka sounds like it might be good.
Almost like a cherry limeade.
Mm-hmm. And it is. It is pretty good. Oh, yeah, that is pretty good. I probably could even put more vodka in that, but it's a little light pink. It probably should be a little darker pink.
Could even add, if you get really fancy, like a little squeeze of fresh lime.
Yep. That's good. Yeah. So that's what my concoction for today.
I like it.
And it's good. So yeah, it feels like a good summer. Like it was nice. Well, yesterday was warmer.
Yesterday was really nice. Yeah.
Today was still about 60 here. So we're starting to get there. So, all right, Ty, what do you got?
So I have a little bit of a brownish liquor. Troy, we recently, and we'll talk about it in gaming, had a Frosthaven night, and we also combined with a bourbon tasting. This is Wilderness Trail, the Baird Barrel Select. So Troy works with, I believe, somebody in Lexington.
Louisville.
Louisville. I don't know why I said Lexington. In Louisville, who kind of sourced these barrels from Wilderness Trail in Danville, Kentucky, and kind of, I assume, went through a tasting process and kind of fine-tuned. And we were able to sample both a wheat bourbon, and this is a rye bourbon that I have here. So we'll be having some of that tonight as we record this episode. And it is quite delicious.
Yeah, that one was very tasty. I have the wheat one, which is a little more smoother, and since I am not as much of a bourbon drinker, it'll be kind of right up my alley. So but I enjoyed that one. That one has definitely got a lot going on.
And for any of the armchair quarterbacks who want to criticize me, I did put a few ice cubes in it because when recording, I couldn't just have a neat bourbon because I needed it to last for a little bit and stay cold. But we did try them neat, as you should, and enjoyed them, the full body of the flavor. So anyone who's going to send me hate comments about it, I know. I'm sorry.
All I'll know is my friend who got those bottles for us, he said he again, as much as he is a very much connoisseur, he's like, there's no wrong way to drink bourbon. He will tell you preferred ways. He told me like how you should taste it and how, taste it neat and other, but he also, he said, there's no wrong way. Like, he just encourages bourbon drinking in general, and find the way that you like it and go with it.
Absolutely. And I mean, as long as you're staying hydrated, really, you're accomplishing your mission. So
for more shows like this, check out the Goonhammer Media Network. More info at media.goonhammer.com.
All right. So, Troy, let's talk about what we've been playing. We actually had a mutual game night. We got back to Frosthaven, which was pretty fun, where I think just talked about our bourbon tasting. But John and Josh joined us for the gaming. Well, we had some of the bourbon, and we saved some polar bears in a Frosthaven mission that was kind of a different style than we've seen before. So what I'm liking, and I know we've played a lot of Frosthaven over the last year plus, but it doesn't feel like you get the same mission. I would have thought by now it would start to feel like scenarios you kind of could figure the math out, and like, no, but every one really does seem to have a really unique mechanic. And it's like, even from the elevator one to, the soil sample one with the teleporting tunnels, there's every time it just feels like there's another twist, a different mechanic, something new. And that's been, for me, one of the more impressive things, because I feel like Gloomhaven didn't have that same level of like variable, like variation, mission to mission.
Yeah, I didn't play a ton of Gloomhaven, so I can't make complete comparison. But yeah, I did. Like, just when you think like, oh, here we're just in every scenario. Yeah, especially again lately, the ones we have seem like they've been throwing a little curve at us for that. And again, we peeked ahead. I won't spoil it too much, but we peeked ahead at the mission. We always kind of prepare for our next one when we finish up that, and the next one looks even more like completely different than what we've done before. So it'll be interesting. Yeah.
But
definitely won't be able to do your like, it's not scripted. We won't be able to, I definitely won't be able to script my first 3 turns like I normally do in this next mission. So
no, it'll be crazy. Trying to think what else. So I know our friend Eric has been a friend of the show and BoD member, has been trying to get kind of like a 1 miniature game a month or multiple. We've done some kill team as a group, then we've played individually. I got together with Eric a few weeks ago, and we just played kind of the first scenario out of Trench Crusade. Both of us had our kind of starter war bands that we had painted up and had at Adepticon for our kind of mini narrative campaign, but just to kind of play through and get a real game in. And I feel like played the game in about an hour and a half and just kind of hung out, had a good time. We played on a smaller board, so we used one of the kill team mats and put some terrain. So it's just a much smaller version of the game, and started like deploying off the edge then, of the long mat. So you still end up with roughly 24 inches between you, which is about what you get in any kind of game of Trench Crusade. You just don't have much on the corners, right? So, but had fun. I think the victory points ended in my favor from holding some objectives, but some fun moments, some good combats. his artillery witch could not hit targets, so she would pull these bombs out of hell and throw them across the battlefield, and then they would scatter or not take out the target. So
That's the mini with the big. She has like the big bomb in one hand or whatever.
yeah,
it is.
she's holding
Okay.
up like a bomb
Yeah.
like this. Yeah. Her lore is pretty crazy. She literally pulls these bombs from hell and then launches them
No.
across the battlefield.
Hmm.
Artillery witch.
But she needs more practice. At least Eric's needs more practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
She should spend some more time on the range.
Okay, that's good. And maybe I'll just jump in because Eric, I think it was the week after, 2 weeks after, Eric and I've been kind of doing our kill team things, and so we did I think it was a rematch of no, did he play slightly different? He had a slightly different, he mixed up a little bit of his kill team, I think, on that, and I brought my Necrons again as I'm trying to I same thing, I mixed in a little different leader in the next Necron group there, so we did played some kill team. That was fun. Yeah, it was again just trying to get a feel for that. He ended up really killing me, but it was kind of how it all tipped. We were I didn't know his secret mission. But without that, we were kind of tied and end of turn 3 at like 8-8. But then, and again, he still would have won, but I needed to get one. If I would have got one guy back, I'm like, Necrons can bring back somebody each turn, and if I get this one guy back, I would have been able to get to secondaries, and like I had my whole plan, and of course that's when it's a dice game, right? And like that one didn't come back, and then he ended up, I think it was almost double. He scored all the points in the third and the fourth, and then I didn't get anything. But yeah, it was fun. Again, came right down to the end, and enjoying. I don't know. I have a million different. I'm always like, should I stick with the same one and figure out how to maybe to play it, or then try a different one and just play it? I don't know. So, but that'll be in the hobby, because I think it'll be about me wanting to build another kill team,
build a new kill team,
play with it, and then play with it whether it wins or not. It'll be, and we keep using, again, I hope everybody is. We use the Goonhammer app to do the scoring and go through, and I like that. Now that I've kind of figured it out too, it actually makes it pretty easy. So
there's a lot of cool stuff on that Goonhammer site. Have you seen their media network?
Yes.
Good stuff. And what is really interesting about Goonhammer, Troy, is they haven't credited Dr. Gabe with all of his producing work for our show on the media network site. So we're gonna have to make sure that all of his work gets acknowledged. Yeah, all that editing that he does for you, and posting the show.
I think it's called executive editing. It's called executive editing when you don't actually have to edit anything, but you get credit for it. Yeah.
I don't know that that'll ever get old. Like that, I'm gonna remember him claiming to be our producer as long as I remember, like, Will Conway talking one of Dr. Gabe's kids into playing like a goblin sorcerer in Pathfinder, probably 10 years ago on a patio at Gen Con.
Yep.
Oh, good stuff. Any other board gaming or anything for you?
My memory might be going. I don't think so. I might have, but I don't think we played it. I played anything else.
Couple things here. So Nicole and I pulled out the tile placement game, co-op game, Dorf Romantik, based on the computer game where you're kind of building landscapes and you're trying to total points by completing objective tiles, and it kind of plays out as you earn your points, you'll open additional achievement opportunities and boxes that add cards and different tiles into the game. So we played that a couple times, and then I've been running a D&D campaign, the Dungeons of Drakkenheim. The Dungeon Dudes produced that book with Ghostfire Gaming, and we're probably about halfway through it with Tom and Jenna, and then Matt and Elena as well. So I think they're level 6, going on 7 soon, starting to really get into the meat of that one, because that's one of those campaigns that goes to about level 12. So making some good progress, starting to unravel some of the mysteries, and they just had kind of one of their first major like boss fight style encounters. So it's been pretty fun.
Cool. And that's we talked about there. That's like a book, right? Or
Yeah.
Yep.
It is a book. The
oh, there we go.
Dungeons
You have the
of Drakkenheim.
And did you buy
Should I open it? Should I
is
show
is
it?
there like a D? Do you have it like the D20 version that you're running it, or the
So I
or
put
roll
it on,
20 version?
got
Yeah.
it on Roll20 as well. As I often do, I buy the hardback and then I also buy the digital.
Right.
And then I bought the source book, but my brother has that has some of the classes and extra stuff in it. Sebastian Crow's Guide to Drakkenheim, I think that one's called. It's a really cool kind of self-contained campaign. It's not dark gothic, but it's a little darker. There's been this asteroid, this meteor that hit the city of Drakkenheim and destroyed it 15 years ago. And there's this kind of dark, like eldritch mist that is hung over the city, the haze that causes mutations. And so as you venture in, you have to make like constitution saves or the haze starts to affect you and you have a chance to gain mutations as you're more and more contaminated. So at one point, Elena's character had like kind of milky white eyes. And Jenna's character failed a couple and she ended up having gills and then spiky protrusions. So we started calling her a pufferfish for a while. And you've got to get those problems taken care of because it's nasty. Like once you get above 2 levels of this contamination, it really starts to have some negative impacts to your abilities. But yeah, Drakkenheim, it's fun. I had never got very far in the Dungeon Dudes like campaign that it's based on. I started it and I was like, oh, this is neat. But it plays pretty cool.
Oh, I did play a game. I'm like, I keep racking my brain.
Hey.
Sarah and I did break out the old Legends of Drist. Yeah, WizKids, right? Kind of board game, D&D board game. Because Sarah really wanted to play D&D. Although it was interesting, she's like, she wasn't as excited about that. She's actually like, can't we play real D&D? Because she was, I thought, well, this is kind of, I mean, it has a lot of very D&D mechanics, right, around that. So I'm glad I remembered. I'm like, I know I had a board game out and I could not rack my brain on it. Yeah.
We might have to figure out a way, speaking of summer objectives, to do a dads and kids in person D&D, like me and Landon, you and Sarah and Josh and Zach or something. Like that could be that could be something fun to give a whirl.
Well, probably the trick will be, I don't know how Landon is, but Sarah, it has to be like there can't be a stop in the action. There's going to be no right.
A roller
it has
coaster.
To be just boom, boom, like
off the rails.
Right, and then there can't be any pause, like because she'll lose interest. But as long as there's like boom, something right in front of her, she'll be ready to rock.
Or we just do an hour and we just light speed D&D. How about hobby? All this gaming. Any paintbrushes?
I've been pretty light. I don't know if is getting rid of stuff a hobby. Making room for more stuff is that. So I did for local people. Our friend Marlon had recommended a place called Gamers Realm over in New Berlin. Sarah and I went and checked out a couple weeks ago, and I took a bunch of stuff because he also buys kind of used and other games over there. So I took some stuff over there, checked it out. Interesting and really cool store. Cool vibe. The guy was great. I sold some stuff there, trying to get rid of of things over there as I continue to make room for some.
Were you getting rid of models or game?
I did a little bit of a couple of board games, and then a lot of it was the Defticon swag bag, right? From this year and past years, right? That I still had some stuff, some of those random miniatures and things like that. But I had a little bit of both because he'll do. There's a lot of. He does have miniature stuff there, but also has a pretty decent board game.
Wonder, does he
selection
have an
over there.
eBay store where he'll buy stuff and then try to
I
resell?
don't
Or
know if he's doing anything besides. I mean, he has a bunch of shelves there with all the consign. I don't say consignment, with all the used stuff. Besides
Yeah.
he has one room that's just all
Mm.
the used stuff that he moves over. So there's some good deals in there, like for people, especially in the miniature stuff, if you're looking
Yeah.
for things. So
Very cool. I've been doing a little bit of hobby that's not getting rid of stuff or even acquiring, but actual real hobby. So I did get a bunch of resin bases from the acquisition for my Trench Crusade.
Mhm.
I tried this one is like actual trench walls for basing for my new Antioch guys. So I'm gonna paint those up here soon. But I've been assembling some of my new Antioch Trench Crusade models. So the big mechanized infantry. Then I got a bag of a few more from Dr. Gabe. And then I haven't made it very far, but so this is Harry Potter miniatures from Knight.
Oh.
They did a Kickstarter years ago, and I got rid of most of the Kickstarter, but I kept I think it's Luna Lovegood. I'm not a
Mhm.
big Harry Potter aficionado, but she is one of my wife's like favorite characters. So what I'm doing, with help from Bryce, he gave me kind of the color scheme, is I am painting Luna Lovegood as a gift, be it around the wedding anniversary this weekend or Mother's Day. I've got some work to do. If it takes too long, it might end up being something to go with the birthday in October. But just a little out of my element because I have no idea what I'm painting. So I was like, here's the image, Bryce. Can you give me like a paint by numbers? So he did like hair, this color with a wash and this highlight. And then like, long sleeves, this gray with and he posted it in one of our Discord channels. So, and he's like, "Ooh, I love this game," because I'll often ask like, "What's the color scheme I should do?" Or, how do I get this to look the right way?
That looks little, like, right? Because it's like
it
a
is small.
true 28 millimeter, unlike our heroic 28s that we usually end up painting everything.
Yeah. It's, so it's pretty small, when you think like, here's the thumb.
Right. That's
So, and yep, the medicine bottle paint stick too is the classic when you don't want to buy a good one. So then painting that up, and then the sports card hobby, I don't know if it shows off screen, but continuing to go to monthly hobby shows and buy cards and sort and build sets, and it's a problem at this point. But continuing to do a lot of sports card, which brings me to a request for you, Troy, on BoD Discord. Dr. Gabe and I, we don't know that anyone will tune in, but we'd like a breaks channel on Discord. So guys will open packs.
This to me. Okay.
Yeah, so breaking is this thing where these streamers will sell spots. So like they'll sell teams, like I could buy the Packers for $12, and then they'll open a box of cards, right? And they show every card and they reveal it as they open it, and then any players or any cards from that team will get sent to whoever bought that spot in the break. So basically it's like live stream pack opening. But Gabe and I were like, it would be fun if we could just watch each other break packs. And so I was like, we'll have to ask Troy. And he's like, maybe we'll even find somebody else that is secretly, a sports card aficionado.
Well, I know they do it
he's deep in. Like,
now that you've talked, because I saw this like for Pokemon, they also will do. Yeah. Because I remember I had bought some cards for something for Sarah, and then it got on their mailing list, and then they started sending me like, here's our break, and I didn't quite understand it. I'm like, I kind of get it. It feels like I'm like getting a spot, and then I'm gonna get it. But all right, now I get it.
Yeah, it's huge. And then there's this whole live stream auction website called Whatnot, where guys will do live stream auctions. They put up a card, and then it's like a 15-second auction, and people are bidding these things up just super high. It's insane. I can't fathom how you can make that kind of snap decision to,
Yeah.
as I peruse eBay for hours at a time to put like one bid in, only to have it matched and raised like 30 minutes later.
But they know who they got. They got the people who are compulsive and instantaneous. They know people are not going to make great decisions when they only have 4 seconds to decide. Right.
Right.
Cool. And then, so my non-hobby, it just happened to be as we got into April, May here, I went to about 3 concerts in the last week. So that's pretty cool. Been fun. Yeah. So
who did you go see?
I went and saw Spirit Box out in Madison, whatever was week ago, Saturday or so. I was in Chicago for Arch Enemy.
I like Arch Enemy.
And actually did a meet and greet. So got to like say hi. And mostly because I had to drive Chicago. So I was going to be there early anyway. And I'm like, oh, all right, let's try to do this thing. So that was fun. And then I was at our people who are local, the Cheryl Lynn Wilson Center over in Brookfield. I'd been out there, but I'd never been in there. And really I went for Mike Dawes, who's a acoustic guitarist, finger pick guitarist. Again, it's pretty cool. And so he was actually the opener for, and I'll date myself and whatever, but he's even ahead of me. So Justin Hayward was the lead singer for Moody Blues. I think most people know at least one Moody Blues song but they were like literally, they're like a 60s, 70s band. This guy's 78 years old, was out there and did. So I saw him and I'm like, well, I'm here. I'll hang out. And it's a beautiful, and I had a nice comfortable chair and whatever, right? And a beer. And I'm like, I'll listen to, and I couldn't believe this guy. I mean, it had to be an hour and a half plus set. And
cool.
Right. And then, and I knew my handful of, like, there's the handful of Moody Blues hits that even if you don't know them, you'd know the songs because they've been just kind of.
Did they do Nights in White Satin?
Nights in White Satin. That's probably the biggest. Yep.
Moody Blues song.
That's it. Yeah. So you would, and there's a couple others that you'd be like, you maybe couldn't name them, but you're like, oh, I've heard that song. And so it was good. But again, and again, small concert like that. So afterward, got to get Mike to sign some stuff and just say hi in a little bit like that. So again, fun. And then Metal Fest is coming up here in 2 weeks in Milwaukee. And Arch Enemy will be back, and so I'm going to double dose Arch Enemy. So that was.
Where's Metal Fest at?
The rave downtown. Yeah.
Yeah, that's too intense for me.
No, it's fun. It's an interesting crowd to hang out with. But it's,
well, speaking of hobbies that aren't hobbies that are hobbies, crowdfunding is a hobby. I think you and I were lamenting recently getting a ton of messages on Kickstarters that I follow and companies that I follow about the impact of the tariffs to the board game industry. And I think we're gonna start to see some issues with these companies fulfilling some of these Kickstarters based on, what is being charged for the importing and kind of finishing the production runs. So it's kind of a rabbit hole to go down. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but it's just, I think right now, anyone who is tangentially interested in board games and the idea of crowdfunding board games and kind of independent publishers trying to raise funds and stuff, it's a pretty scary time, I think, for the entire kind of gaming industry right now. And it'll really be important here, if you've got a creator that you like and you have a way to buy direct from them, or you have ways to support, artists, designers, I like that would be my call to action. Find the little things you can do, because I think it's going to get pretty bleak if the environment doesn't change quickly for that gaming kind of industry in general. Like, I think the giants will be okay. Like, but
they'll kind of figure out some of that. What I'm wondering, and again, total speculation, like I don't know that you can ever make the numbers work, but will you see those European game companies just do European release it. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't want to leave the US market out, because I'm sure it's right,
Yeah.
50% or more probably. But if you set the whole thing at scale, I don't
Yeah.
know, will we start to see that where there are games that only release in Europe or something, right?
Yeah.
I never heard of that yet, but it's just something I thought of, like, oh, that'd be interesting, yeah, to see. Because some people maybe just like, I'm not going to deal with it right until things get kind of figured out. But we did have one Kickstarter that is related to our well, I say our, but mostly yours and everyone but me. But I'm invested in the lore at this point of our Trench Crusade.
We'll get you a game of Trench Crusade.
Yeah, I feel like that's all I'm good for. Is I dropped a little, like, here's a cool story, here's a cool Kickstarter about Trench Crusade that I dropped in our thread. But Grimdark Terrain looked really cool. It's a STL 3D print that Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's a live, should be live. You're listening to this sometime in May of 2025. It should be live. Looks pretty cool. Some really interesting pieces in there, real grimdark, as in the name, like which was different than some of the other stuff. Again, I haven't looked at, there's not like a ton of stuff out there, but it feels like there were some unique pieces in here that were really kind of in that very much vibe of Trench Crusade. So I don't know who the designer is. We should do a better job, but
there's some really cool kind of modular, like trench works, like where you could line them up with foam or other inserts, and then some little chapels and kind of battlefield walls and gun turrets and stuff that are really good for kind of scatter terrain, and really great detail. Like, the other thing is their prints look just an incredible amount of detail, from textures and like skulls and bullet casings, and kind of I'd be interested to see how they print, unless you're doing resin printing. I could see, like, what is it, FDM? Is that the filament method?
Filament ones, yep.
It being a little interesting if you can maintain some of the level of detail, but from a resin printing, they look like some of these are just awesome.
Yeah, and I think Soul Good Creations is the group kind of behind that, and you can look at, they've done again on My Mini Factory and other things. You can look at a lot of the other things that they've done. So definitely, so a company who's definitely got some history to them, and they're not. So it'll be good to see. I'm sure this will be a pretty cool release when they get it out there.
And it is currently funded. They needed $1,000 was their goal, and they're at $12,000. So there we go. Compatible with Trench Crusade. Let's other, I think, unless there's more kickstarting or hobby, but I think other. So one thing, I got a pre-release from so Game Nerds is a hobby gaming store out of Texas near Dallas, but they have a really good web store that I've ordered stuff from in the past. So I got hey, pre-order is up for Universes Beyond. So Magic the Gathering, when they do their kind of other IP releases, is doing a Spider-Man set end of August into September. And haven't seen much like of the art or what's going to be included, but it was kind of like, get your collector boosters or your boxes. I'm sure there will be some commander decks, but I'm really interested to see the Spider-Man kind of world and Spider Foes as Magic cards, and I think that could be a pretty interesting draft night, just for those of us that aren't super into Magic, but appreciate it, and then also for anyone who's a Marvel or a Spider-Man fan. I think it's always cool to see some different take on the heroes that you love.
Cool. Yeah, and you just said that, reminded me, Ty, is that for the Marvel role-playing game, I believe it just came out, Matt Forbeck's new, I don't know if he wrote all of it or whatever, the Spider-Verse expansion for the Marvel role-playing game. Superhero role-playing game. I think it just came out, or it's coming out real soon, around some of that. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm seeing that out there too. So,
all right, Troy, let's do it. Let's talk about the library. Crack open the doors. What we've been reading /listening, watching. My Audible annual plan renewed in April, so I'd been kind of without Audible new titles for a month or two. It exhausted my 12 credits and just didn't want to pay more for more credits, so I was kind of trying to clear a few things. But when they hit, I did right away get Matt Dinneman's Dungeon Crawler Carl, the 7th book, Inevitable Ruin, which had released in February. I'm making my way through that. It's definitely renewed my interest. I think books like 4 or 5 and even 6, I had started to be a little like, okay, I'm getting a little tired. Book 7, I think, really picked up the pace, changed it up, and has done some cool stuff. So I'm kind of back in now. I'm like, okay, where else is this going to go?
Yep.
And I continue to be amazed when I see videos of Jeff Hayes, the narrator, doing all of these different voices,
Yep.
like just one after another. And you see him in studio, like having a conversation with himself between 4 character voices. It reminds me of like when you would see some of the people who do voices for like The Simpsons and their ability to just go between multiple. Pretty fantastic. So been enjoying that. The Inevitable Ruin is the Dungeon Crawler Carl, book 7. I read one that I don't know how it popped up. I think I saw it on like a best sci-fi or time travel. It's called All of Our Wrong Todays, and it was written in 2017 by Elan Elan Mastal. I'm not sure. He's a screenwriter, and I think it was his first book. And it plays with this concept of a guy who is in kind of a technology utopia future where like in the 60s everything went right with tech and like fusion energy, and like humanity just advanced itself and everybody's happy and great and taken care of, and things happen and he ends up back in time. And then when he returns, instead of returning to his utopian everything went great after this experiment in the 60s, he is in our world, and he has to adjust to kind of what went wrong to get us to where we are with climate change and pollution and globalization, like corporate greed and all this other stuff. And then kind of the back and forth and trying to change things to get back to where he had been. But embedded in the time travel and the science is ultimately a love story. There was a woman he had met briefly in one timeline. There's a woman he meets and falls in love with who's the same woman but different, because they're completely different people, but he is like the same. And it plays with this concept of what happens to you when you time travel, like your life, and they kind of equate it to like when he's this guy, he had childhood memories and made drawings of these cityscapes of like this futuristic city, saying like he'd always been there but not manifested it, So really cool book, really enjoyed it. The pacing is a little slow to build and then it just takes off. The last like 100 pages are a whirlwind. But really highly recommend that one. I enjoyed it a lot. Then Nicole and I did another book title recommendation for each other for May. Nick Cutter, he wrote a book called The Troop, and another he writes pretty in your face, like graphic, like scary horror stories. This is called The Handyman Method. It's really weird. Couple and their son move into a new house, but there are all these projects that are necessary, and he gets obsessed with this. He finds this YouTube channel, like Handyman Hank, and watches the videos, but it starts to like feel like the videos are talking to him, and the house has some kind of malignant presence, and the little boy is like obsessed with this YouTube kind of show, like screen time, that is basically telling him to do bad things. And like it's this very like how pervasive technology is with this kind of concept of family trauma. But I told Nicole I don't like it. Like not a single one of the characters do I have any empathy for. Even the little kid, like you don't feel for any of them. They're all just, they have their own problems and issues. And I think that's probably the point. but none of them are really.
But that can be hard.
likable.
It's just hard to read. Yeah, I
So-
mean, it's like you're kind of like, oh, I want to read this to experience it, right? But it's I think sometimes if you don't have anybody to grab onto, right, it's hard to.
But yeah, so and then I have a few other books I'm trying to. I do that thing where I read like 6 or 7 books, but I'm listening to a podcast as well called Empire. It's like a history one about it's 2 British historians and one might be a journalist. They start talking about the East India Trading Company and kind of the British expansion into India and what happened there and the history and the horrific kind of effects of colonialism. And he is he's older. I don't know how I shouldn't call him elderly. He's an older British guy who now lives in India, and she is born and raised in England, but she's of Indian heritage. So their perspective on it. I might have talked about this last time too, but I'm like 7 or 8 episodes in, and they've gotten the like Gandhi and what, like, I'd only really heard about hunger strikes and Gandhi as an older man and what he did. But this is really like when Gandhi first became involved in like political movements and what he was doing, and paints a different picture of him. Like when you kind of learn about what he supported and how he helped like the British like empire for a while, and but really good podcast. Episodes are like 45 minutes to an hour, so really digestible. Then I'm watching Last of Us season 2, first 3 episodes in. So I'm like one behind now.
You're one behind. I just finished
I've watched the first 3 episodes, so continues to just be a really good adaptation, I think, of the source material. I think there's been some pretty harsh criticism of some of the female actresses, but I really have enjoyed it. And then I also started watching a show on Netflix. I think it's called Clubhouse. It's like a year with the Boston Red Sox. And I'm not a big Red Sox fan, but I'm such a baseball fan. It's cool, kind of like they show the players, at spring training, and they mic them up during the games and everything else. But what about you, Troy?
Pretty cool. So I just today I wanted to make sure I could talk about it on our podcast. I think I talked about it last time. Interceptor City, the sequel to Double Eagle. Dan Abnett revisits the characters from Double Eagle 20 years later, or at least one. It's centered around one of the characters from Double Eagle 20 years later. Pretty good. I mean, it's a lot different. Again, I think Abnett does a really good job of when he does a sequel, it like he makes it completely different, right? He doesn't ever do kind of the same thing twice. I think Gaunt's Ghost is a good example of that, where it's like each one of those books had took a different angle at kind of the troops in war kind of thing, and the same thing here. And similar, it's a fighter pilot thing, but a completely different environment on some of that. I probably only go. It's hard. Like I'm probably only go 4 stars. I think it felt a little bit like the story is really good. I enjoyed it. Or I shouldn't say the character's really good and whatever. I do think he gets about 3/4 through and then like not sure where to go. Like, all right, here we're gonna kind of like find the end of some of that, and it's interesting, but it doesn't have. It's more of a like here's the 100 and some days of the battle, and less of a real through plot through that. Through a thing, because it's kind of like all of a sudden I got about halfway through and you're like, all right, this is really cool, but where is he going? Like, where is he going? And you're like, all right, I'm kind of like I can kind of guess where he's going to go a little bit and some of that. So we'll take a star off for that. I think the overall, but I think part of it is that experience and very character. I mean, if you think of it as you're really a character centric, it really is this woman's story through that time, and less about kind of an arc, like who's the protagonist, and it's not really like getting after the big bad. It's really her journey through that. And that's what it ends up kind of being. So and enjoy it. Again, it's hard to not like Abnett and some 40K battles and a lot of a lot of cool stuff in there. Then I have some interesting ones. I've kind of dipped my toe in there. Some anime. We have an anime channel at work, and there I always see some things that everyone's like, oh, that might be interesting. And so Solo Leveling is an anime set in this world, again, a world where gates opened up around the world, and basically there were dungeons. So and
Dungeon crawler Carl
right, it's kind of and it's what's funny is I'm sure that anime, I don't know what the timing is, right
influenced
around
it.
the same,
Yeah.
kind of a, but it's so the normal world, and then and then at that same time, basically certain humans all became kind of magic, not all of them, but some people became magic aware, and they became kind of the heroes. And with that, and basically you'd go, and there's like a measurement, because you're basically like, you have, I don't know what it's like, I think S is like the super strong, like the superhero guys are S's,
Your
and
S tier.
otherwise you're
Okay.
S tier, or otherwise you're an A, B, C, or D.
Okay.
And it follows this guy who's like a D, or like the weakest. And when it starts, and again, very brutal, again, kind of typical anime, like a lot of blood, a lot of gore. And the kind of the story is like they open up, and then there's only so much time. Otherwise, like, they have to close the dungeon. Otherwise, the portal stays open, and then the monsters can wander out into the world. So it's like once a portal opens, then they kind of call the hero groups, and they can, like, the dungeons are rated. It's kind of funny, right? It's like, oh, this is a B level portal, and so you'll get like B level heroes will go to party, and then there's like some magic, like you can go in there and they get some kind of I don't know what it's some kind of bones or things like that, and they have like worth in the real world. And so there is like this money incentive to go be a dungeon crawler, right? So it's interesting how they built the plot. Like, okay, the world makes sense, right, internally, like, right, so that, and then it just follows this really weak guy. I won't go into it, but like things go really, really wrong, and then he has a experience where he comes back, and now instead of being kind of a fixed level, like, he has ways where he can now build himself up. And that's kind of the story, is him kind of becoming, instead of being this really weak guy, he's solo leveling. He actually gets this kind of program or magic thing that's helping him become a better hero around some of that stuff. So I can see why people like it. Again, I'm only kind of a few episodes in to see him on his journey there. So, but yeah, interesting world. And then Delicious in the Dungeon is on Netflix, and kind of weird, really weird. So more of a fantasy world, similar in that adventuring parties go out, like, to go into dungeons and get that stuff. But this one group, like, they figure out that they can kind of cook and eat the monsters around the way, which is kind of half gross, whatever. Again, I'm only a couple episodes in, and it's an interesting take on the whole, again, kind of taking the generic dungeon crawling kind of thing, and around the cooking aspect of, like, how do you, and it's like, oh, this is a delicacy, and they're taking, and it's kind of gross and kind of what anime, but it's kind of funny. So some good light things right up our alley. So, and then same, I'm watching Last of Us 2, trying to I don't know, I'm not as familiar with Last of Us 2 source material. I wasn't. So it's a ride, and so it's hard. I don't know, it's hard. Like, episode 2 was hard. It was really hard. And but that said, I don't know, like, mostly it's like, I think there's some really, really good scenes, and they're doing some amazing things. Again, I don't know the overall thing. I'm not as engaged in, like, what the heck is the story arc. I don't know that I care about the characters, but I don't know that I care about the story, like, at this point, right? I'm like, I kind of get where they're going, but I'm like, because unlike Last of Us 1, there was a definite, like, right, there was an arc, like, where you're like, here's what they're doing, right? And now they're
Yeah.
here. There's less of a, I feel like, a through, again, without knowing the
Yeah.
original source material arc. But
I'm interested to see what they do from here, because the first few episodes played out kind of like, okay, I know what's coming because I'm familiar with the game.
Yeah.
Then the game does something at risk of spoiling I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about, but like, I'm interested to see if they kind of stick with this. That does kind of subvert your expectation and subvert kind of the way that the story unfolded in the first season, in the first game, and it kind of changes a little bit in season 2. So interested to see if it goes there, and we'll follow back up.
Yep.
And
enjoying it. And Bella Ramsey's just crushing it as
Yeah.
normal. Like she's really,
Yeah. Yeah, she's fantastic. So library still. I need to talk about this because by the time that we record again, we'll both have read it. May book release, Joe Abercrombie, The Devils. It comes out, I think, next week, Tuesday. I think the 13th is release day. Stephen Pacey doing Audible, like hands down. I put up a brief clip. I don't know if you saw that in Discord of Stephen Pacey reading like a page, like it might be the first page of the book, or was amazing.
Performing. Stephen Pacey does not read.
He
performs the book. Yeah.
Well, I think his reading out loud is a performance.
Right. Yeah.
But so Grimdark Magazine, if you recall, I talked about Grimdark Magazine having done kind of a fantasy list and me finding this. Well, now every so often I see their stuff. They did an article or an interview with Joe about the Devils. And I want to read you a part of it because I think it's really cool. And we've talked a lot about representation. We've talked about, gender dynamics and when your characters are female, male, and perspective. And I thought this was really cool and I wanted to share with you in case you hadn't read the article. Yeah. So the interviewer asked, you've mentioned a conscious effort to include more female perspectives in your work. How did this intention manifest in the Devils, and how does it impact the story? So Abercrombie says the First Law trilogy was very male-focused, for sure. I'm proud of the female characters in it, but there aren't many of them. There's nothing wrong with writing about men, and as a man, it's the automatic option. But in general, I don't see much downside to more variety in the cast. Different attitudes, different struggles, different types of relationships. It just helps a world feel more vivid and lived in and, well, real. The real world's got lots of women in it, after all, as did the medieval world, often doing strange, unexpected, and interesting things. What happens if you put a woman in the kind of role where you might expect default a man? So in the case of the Devils, I made the savior figure a woman, female savior, therefore female priesthood, female Machiavellian cardinals, 10-year-old girl for a pope. The central cast is pretty evenly split, and because they're, actual monsters, you get all types. There's some classically feminine women like Courtier par excellence, Lady Severa, but also in some ways some very masculine ones, like explosively violent and aggressively sexual werewolf Vigga. There are some very masculine men like grizzled warrior Jacob of Thorn, as well as some quite feminine ones like cloistered monk Brother Diaz. For me, it just makes for a richer and more varied tapestry. So like I think we've talked a bit in the past about that. And I think it's cool because that's it's not a complaint many people raise of Abercrombie, but
no,
especially
that's funny because
First Law books.
Yeah, I could see the First Law, but like my favorite
Age of Madness with Ricka.
With Ricka, and then my favorite Best Served Cold. I mean,
Yep.
Manscaro, Mercado is like my very female. That's funny to think about. I guess if you think of First Law, the first 3 books, yes, right. They're very. I probably can't think of a female character that is prominent in in that one, but yeah, I think he does very. But it's interesting, to then flip everything on its head. I'm excited. That's a good. So now I might have to kind of make sure I'm keep my palette clear until that book comes out, because that way you can just hit my
Yeah.
my Audible right away when it comes out.
So interesting interview. I'll try to send you the link too, and maybe we can post that in the show notes, because I think both the Stephen Pacey performance of the first page or two, and the Grimdark magazine interview with Abercrombie as a lead up to the book. So very excited. That's like next up. I'm stopping wherever I am in any other book,
Yep.
and the moment that hits, I'm reading it. So, and you're gonna go see Joe.
Yep.
Chicago.
Whenever that is, and end of May, right? Sometimes that, I think
May
it's
17,
the
17, 18.
No, I think it's might be the last week. I think it's Memorial Day weekend, the Saturday before Memorial Day. I think, if I'm right. But
all right, so that's the library. We should take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about summer hobby and gaming goals. And we are back to talk about our summer hobby and gaming goals. So not an extensive list, just a few items, but thought we can always share and elaborate or talk about it. But I'm going to let you go first.
I always say, and it creates accountability. That's
because we put this out there, and
we
then
put this out there, and then
our friends that listen and other people are like, "Oh, hey, how's this coming?"
Yeah. And then I still say I didn't work on it, but it at least puts a little bit. It it would be good. Yeah, it creates a little bit of peer pressure, a little bit of accountability to get this stuff done. So, I'll start. And Ty, you had thrown this out there, and it was funny because I had been thinking the same thing since Adepticon, where we got a little BattleTech mech, whatever they call them, squad, whatever, miniatures, and the new BattleTech, or whatever it is, the resurgence of BattleTech over the last few years has been pretty cool. And I played I probably played I can't even count on one hand like the number of times I've actually played like BattleTech, right? I love the lore, love the books. I've read all the books, the Stackpole books back in the day, and around some of that. So I still kind of keep there. And I think I talked about last time I did buy the huge collector edition of the history of BattleTech kind of book when I was at Adepticon. So I think it'd be kind of cool to just paint up kind of whatever they call it. And that's not a squad, whatever they're called, but whatever a lance or whatever, or something and probably play the Alpha Strike version of the rules, or maybe have to pull out the old school sheets with the little cross off the armor if we kind of do that, but probably the Alpha Strike version of the rules and throw those on the table and kind of have fun with that. So and you were, I know, Ty, you were saying you guys were playing Mech Warrior back in which kind of gets you're like, oh, this would be
we've been playing Mech Warrior 5 on Steam.
Get into your Mad Cat and go out and do some damage.
So BattleTech, good to see it on there. That's one of mine, and I think it's like paint 4 mechs or whatever and call it a day. Then along that same line, because painted models are important. The other thing that I was going to talk about because I bought the source material for the single player and cooperative adventure for RelicBlade, the Catacombs of Kural. So all the art's always just super cool, and it's all done by Sean Sutter. But it is a 6-mission kind of dungeon-based campaign that you can play solo. So tells you what you need from like a terrain for all of the missions. It kind of lays out like what rooms you need, and then has a setup for each one, and goes through kind of enemy behavior, like AI simple. Here's what they follow through. So I'd like to get some RelicBlade models painted to play a small game, because it's really like 3 to 5 models, plays in about 45 minutes on a 2x2 table, and seems like and easy, like to get it to the table and figure it out. And the quick start rules are like 1 page. So I'm going to work on getting some of the factions painted up to just get a game in, but really want to get RelicBlade to the table, because I think it's a really cool kind of indie designer. He's art, sculpting, rule, like everything. So pretty cool conversation with him at Adepticon, and I'm excited to give the game a try.
Yep. So yeah, that one's also on my list because you've gotten me excited about that to get there. I'm just waiting. I want to I was going to look and see if it was at maybe Old Guard and pick it up local before I go off, and otherwise I will just go and pull it off his website.
Yeah, I bought
yeah.
this straight off of his site.
Right.
Because he just has his own storefront too.
Yep.
So
yeah, I was gonna peek at Old Guard first, and then I'll go on his website if they don't have anything there.
All right, what else do you got?
So as I talked about with playing Eric and Kill Team, I have on Sprue probably 8 other kill teams. So my goal will be to like at least do one more of those. And figure out which one where I'm kind of stuck because I do have 8. I'm like, which one of those do I want to build next? And so that's why I just need to decide on is which one I want to do, because I don't know what I think I have. Did I buy the Marine Scout? I think the Marine Scout ones. I have like the Imperial Breachers. I think I have that Imperial squad that you played that has a lot of those are a lot of really cool miniatures in that.
Yeah.
I think I have another straight Marine one. I have them all, but I just need to decide and go. So, and I can also work on my Necron one is kind of it's not finished. It's more just put together and barely table ready. I could actually paint that up to make it look kind of nice, but so that's another one. I want to, and again, it's only like, less than 10 models. So it should be something to just knock out and again, have it to play. So
yeah, that's the main thing, is just get it done.
Yeah.
Put it in a case so it's there and ready.
Yeah.
From a hobby standpoint, I really want to finish assembling and paint up the new Antioch warband for Trench Crusade. So I've got my Black Grail, mostly done. I've got the small warband and a couple of extra models. So I've got some of those left to like finish up, but then I want to get the new Antioch warband. So I have, one of the demonic legions of hell and one of the kind of human, good and bad, or heaven and hell. So I have one of each, so I can get, hopefully like you or Josh or somebody just to play a game with me. And then, as tangential to that, talked a little bit with Eric, and I know Paul's interested, but doing maybe like a Trench Crusade kind of mini game day where we do round robin and, each get a game in or something, because they do play really quick. So it's not a huge time commitment to say, let's get 2 games, 3 games of Trench Crusade in an afternoon.
Cool. My other one is Ben and I for 2 years have been trying to play Legion Imperialis. So I think we're going to try again, put a stake in the ground. I'll see him again at Gen Con, and we're going to see if we can put together something and at least play a little bit of Legions Imperialis while we're down there. So
I might have to, maybe I'll adjudicate that game, because I think I'll actually be at Gen Con. So I can sit there and be like, Troy, you sure you want to do that? I feel like you should shoot this guy and plant the seeds of deceit.
Yep. Because Ben will have bribed you, I'm sure. So
absolutely. I think the last, so this is a big one, and I think summer is like part 1, phase 1. I haven't yet 100% committed, but I'm mentally preparing myself to organize doing a Trench Crusade narrative event, likely at Adepticon next year. don't know full size, but started kind of doing some basic like table planning kind of themes, making a list of, okay, here's some of the terrain I need, and a rough like timeline of when I would need to do this stuff to feel like it's actually achievable. And so as a part of that, obviously comes the terrain accumulation, the boards, sourcing stuff, like making sure, not that I don't have very reliable friends, but also like a big part of me just wants to like know that it's in hand and done and not rely on other things.
Ty, you sound like me in Space Hulk.
And then kind of come up with the hobby plan of how to reasonably get 12 tables of terrain in addition to planning of what the events are like and how the rules pack. So it's a lot to bite off. I've got some people that I think are interested in helping. We'll see if it's feasible. I would need to, I'm sure, see what, if anything, Adepticon does. I know you had mentioned, I think, conversation with Hank is likely, or somebody from the planning and what. But I just to see if it's truly reasonable to go from, I have 2 tables worth of terrain and stuff to 12 is it feels like a mountain, but
it's not. Yeah. And we've, again, I know there's like you said, it's just getting, even when people said they're going to help, like really that commitment, like, okay, can you really get 2 tables and whatever, right? Because that, because best planning, like you said, all your friends, everybody tries hard, but if somebody happens to have something and has to drop out, then that falls back to you to fill up that gap. And so you kind of want to have a backup plan or a plan B for that, or know that it's done that far ahead. So if you do need to pivot, you have time, right? And some of that, it's the some of that too. So
yeah, because what I don't want to do, right, is put down a mat, like a regular mat in buildings, and like I want it all to be themed and cool, right? Like, and sometimes the plan might be too grand, which is the concern, but it's not something I want to settle. So it's can I do it to what my level of expectation is, having participated in some events that did not meet my expectation. It's run the event you want to play is kind of our mantra. So,
and maybe maybe it's what is that minimum number, right? Maybe it's figuring out maybe start out a little smaller and know that you can accomplish it, and then you can always grow, right? Because even like, we'll name him, right? Even like a Steve Herner didn't always have how many tables do they have now, right? I don't know. The very first whole events were only a half a dozen tables, if that, right? Or something like that. But
that's a good call. Find out, be like Steve. What was the first? What was the first event?
Cool. And then kind of my leftover one I had on here was, I do have a fully 3D printed Hero Quest board that I never got around to painting. So hopefully I can find some time just to get some paint on that thing. And I got stuck mostly because I was trying to figure out like what would be an easy kind of paint scheme to do, kind of all the stonework and whatever to make it look good, but not take a million hours to do either. So I think I went down a lot of YouTube rabbit holes to try and find one that, and I don't know that I ever liked really one. So I think I might need to kind of experiment on my own, take a little bit from other people's things that I think will work and within my skill set, and do it. Cause that's always
I mean, there's something to be said, Troy, for just looking at the existing board and like roughly color matching, because it is iconic. Like
the floor that's for the floors, but you have all the wall. Like what I'm really struggling with is actually all the stone walls around, and I'm trying to figure out because you want that to be like that'll like tie in
neutral,
and tie in, because like you said, like the actual board floor stuff is kind of like you just want to kind of do the pattern. And I have some good stuff around there, but that's where I got stuck, was really on all the wall pieces. How can I do that? Because there's so many too. Like, how can I come up with like a good recipe that's going to look cool, kind of tie it in and not take, because I want to spend the time on the floors that you're going to really, because those are where your eye's going to go. And then, how do you get the stone to kind of go around? But there's still, what's cool, I mean, on that 3D print, there's so much detail too.
Yeah.
On even the walls and things. So it's like, how do you do that justice, but not do that? So we'll see. That's good. Maybe I'll need Sarah to motivate me so that we'll play some more. But so that's a lot. We got it, Ty. We got our summer kind of like
a few things we want to play, a few things we want to paint, a few things we want to start.
I might have to cut and paste this in our notes so that we follow up in the next
see this every day.
Yep.
Yeah. Put up the visual reminder. I try to leave stuff out on the hobby desk as a visual reminder, but now that I don't work from home ever and I'm always gone,
it doesn't remind you as much.
It doesn't remind me twice a week at 8 a.m. But all right. Well, Troy, I think we've made it. We're at that point in the show where we talk about what's coming up. So summer is gaming convention season. There's kind of that short lull after Adepticon wraps up through the spring into summer, and then it's off and running. There's a handful of Wisconsin events. I know we probably are missing some, but I think in May there's Gaming Hoopla.
We just missed
that last weekend.
Yeah, that was last weekend. We talked about it, and I didn't get it. Yeah, it snuck up on. We had been talking about it for the last couple of months, and then it totally snuck up on me. I'm like, oh, one of my friends at work was like, "Are you going this weekend?" I'm like, "Going where?" He's like, "To Gaming Hoopla." I'm like,
"Whoops,
nope, I'm not." But you'll have to
Madison.
tell me about it, so.
Madison Comic Con, Mighty Con. Is that end of May?
I think so. I don't think we missed that yet. Yep.
Tabletop Minions Expo in Oshkosh.
Yep. I think that's Uncle Adam's kind of his gathering that he does up there now.
Then the one that is probably most interesting, and I can't tell if it's for real or if it, like, how much of it's gaming, how much of it is wellness retreat. The Rose Con, June 26th through the 29th in Green Lake, Wisconsin. I think there's volleyball. I think there's gaming. I think there's a pool or beach of some kind. Maybe you could have beach volleyball wargaming.
Yep.
Roll dice and move models, and then your success is if you can win the volley in volleyball. That so you don't roll dice, you actually volley for success.
Who wins. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We could invent a game.
Yep.
And then the granddaddy of them all, Gen Con, July 31st through August 3rd in Indianapolis, coming up. Likely, I think I will make my return, join you and Ben and Dr. Gabe and others at Gen Con.
Event list is up now. Event registration will happen in May
Sunday
18th.
The 18th.
Yeah, a couple weeks from when we are now, but a couple weeks. So
I'm wondering.
Take a look and get a bunch of events that I won't get into, and then I'll just go in afterward and find events that I'll play. So
yeah, we'll have to.
Maybe I should just randomly pick
a bunch of
like
random
12
stuff.
events for the May 18th thing, not get any of those, and then go back the next 2 weeks later and search for stuff that after everybody's done searching.
Sounds like a plan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now is where we tell you, like, subscribe, download, tell your friends. I don't know that I've seen a review in a while. I do like reviews on iTunes and other places. Certainly, talk about what your favorite topic was, who your favorite host is, all that stuff. But anyways, you can always contact us at info@basementofdeath.com. You can check the website. The main page was last updated Gen Con 2023, according to notes from our dear friend Raf Cordero. Playinandslayin.com. Check out all that stuff. YouTube. Just just come hang out with us. And certainly if you see us at any of the gaming stuff coming up this summer, say hi. We generally will be wearing BoD stuff and, you know,
and I'll can I defend my website?
I don't think you need to. I think it's fantastic reference. Everything that is important is updated.
Right. That's what I was saying. If you do any of our events that we've run, we do have that on there. That's what I do try and spend the energy on. So if you go under any of the tabs up there to talk about Space Hulk, Zombicide, what's Imperial? I can never remember the name of the role-playing game time.
Oh, Imperium Maledictum.
Imperium Maledictum. That's why. Too many M's at the end of there. That's Maledictum. Josh's MCP stuff. All that stuff is all up there. So.
Absolutely. But when we find our intern, we'll update the main page. Brand spanking new article and great times and good stuff. All right. Well, hello, Bryce. Hello, Josh. Hopefully you guys still listen. Troy, it's been fun. Keep the dice rolling, the drinks on ice, and no matter what, keep playing and slaying.